Welcome. My name is Patrick, and I'm one of the partners and contributors of the CI Mastermind program offered by Chalmers Street Consulting. In this brief video, I want to introduce you to the basic lean concept of the 8 wastes. This will allow you to more effectively use our free Waste Walk tool to identify continuous improvement opportunities in your environment. Let's get started. Before we cover the different types of waste, I first want to introduce you to the basic concept of value. In any business environment, we have a series of tasks or processes that need to be completed to produce a certain output. Those tasks and processes can be categorized in either value-added or non-value-added from a customer's perspective. Now, a customer can be an external customer, such as an end consumer that acquires a product or service from us. It can be another business that leverages our output or our service to further transform the value of their own deliverables, their own offering. Or it can be simply an internal customer, the next step in our own value chain within our own four walls that takes our output to further add value until we achieve a final output. No matter which perspective we take on, and we should really look at all three of them, there are 3 fundamental requirements that have to be fulfilled to consider a process value added. Number 1, the customer has to recognize the value and must be willing to pay for it. Number 2, it transforms the product or service in a way that it meets customer requirements. We also like to say it changes the fit, form, or function of the product or service. And lastly, it has to be done right the first time, defect-free. Just think about the many times you've experienced when something you acquired didn't meet your expectations. Think about the hassle and the frustration and possibly the extra cost you had to go through to get a replacement or get it corrected. So all of these requirements have to be met for a process to be considered value added. But as you can imagine, in some environments, there are also going to be activities that do not meet those 3 criteria, but they're still required. We would call them non-value added but needed. There are regulatory requirements, there are laws, there are business ethics. All of these have to be fulfilled in a business environment. And while a customer may not be willing to explicitly pay for them, you still have to conduct them to be able to run your business. In a typical business environment that has not experienced a lot of continuous improvement activity yet, it is not unusual that 80 to 95% of the time that it takes to complete all required processes and tasks, we also call this the lead time from customer order to fulfillment, are consumed by non-value added activities, displayed here in the orange color. Many companies are not familiar with the idea of value added versus non-value added activity or waste and waste reduction. So they tend to focus on this blue segment, the value-added activity, and try to squeeze out a few seconds here, a few seconds there, a few minutes here and there. As an example, a previous employer of mine introduced a significant amount of automation in an area that was really struggling to meet customer requirements, both in the context of quality as well as time. But this automation oftentimes is not a good solution to the problem because, again, it focuses only on a small sliver of your problem. And in fact, after a couple of years of failed attempts to stabilize this automation process, they abandoned it and returned to manual activities. And now they're focusing on this orange chunk of the chart here, which is, again, the non-value added activity. This is really where the potential lies for companies. But they first have to learn to see what waste is so they can start addressing those non-value added activities. So let's take a closer look. Across industries, 8 different types of waste have been defined and utilized for many years. And they really do a good job in capturing the potential that exists in eliminating non-value added activities from our businesses. On this chart, they're organized in a way that their starting letters spell out the word downtime, which is just an easy way for all of us to remember them. The first one is defects. Defects is really anything that doesn't meet customer requirements. And so we spend time doing something incorrectly, and then we have to invest even more time correcting or reworking those defects. That's non-value added. And think about it, right? Not only are you investing time doing something wrong, you're also investing time repairing it. Now, this time you could have invested in some other value added activities, right? So the impact of defects is very significant. The second one is overproduction. Overproduction just means producing more, creating more, providing more than is needed, or sooner. And I will get back to this particular waste at the very end with an example. Waiting is the next one on the list. Think about all the people in your environment that seem to be waiting for something, maybe for an email to arrive in their inbox, maybe for a part to arrive in their queue so they can continue doing their work. Oftentimes we mistake this for people not wanting to do their work, but in fact they're waiting. They're waiting for something to arrive so they can do their job. The next one is non-utilized talent. Sometimes it's also called underutilized talent. What that really translates to is not utilizing people to their full capabilities and capacity. And that's disrespectful to people. So either we could utilize them to further improve our processes because they may have good ideas, but we maybe just don't listen. The other way to look at it is they may have skills and capabilities that may go well beyond what we're expecting from them in their process. So we could actually use them for something more advanced, for more challenging processes. The next one is transportation. And that oftentimes applies in a more physical production environment where parts and other pieces and materials are moved around in a facility. So just think about if you're working in a physical factory, think about all the times you're seeing forklifts drive around, pallet jacks, or other means of transportation that are moving parts and materials about. The next one is inventory. Think about all the inventory that you may see at the beginning of a process, in between processes, or maybe it's finished good inventory that's just sitting there waiting to be picked up and then delivered to our customers. And in an office environment, the way you can look at it as all the emails in your inbox, for example, or all the data that is sitting in a database that's just sitting there waiting to be processed. All that inventory creates additional waste. In a physical environment, it occupies space, and space costs money. A database has some costs associated with it. A server has costs associated with it. Think about, again, all these emails in an inbox. How long does it take to process all of these, to get through all of these? The next one is motion or movement. So that's any extra motion that is needed to complete the work. And there's a lot of unnecessary motion involved, whether that's people walking in an office environment from the desk to a printer to return something, whether that's a mechanic in an assembly that needs to leave the workplace to go to a tool room to pick up a special tool or fasteners or any other supplies needed. That's extra motion that's not needed to complete the work. So it's non-value added. And then the last waste is extra processing, meaning taking extra steps or adding extra features that a customer may not value. For example, applying a certain finish to a surface that a customer really doesn't care about, or where it's not relevant for them as part of the use of the product, or including premium features in a service that a customer may not value. We're expensing extra time, money, resources to complete those extra steps. But again, a customer doesn't want them, doesn't require them. So from that perspective, they're considered non-value added and wasteful. So I promised earlier I would get back to the waste of overproduction, which is widely recognized as the worst waste of them all. And I want to illustrate this with a specific example from my past. I used to work in a fabrication plant, and we used to produce many different parts utilized in vehicle assembly. And one of those parts was produced in large quantities and then shipped in different containers to the main assembly line, where they then located along the line waiting for consumption. And that was enough material to be used for weeks, if not months. And so later they've also found out that many of those parts contained defects. So most of them had to be scrapped and redone. So when you think about all the different types of waste that applied here, not only were defects included, but all these parts had to be stored. So that created inventory that consumed space. That inventory had to be moved around through the factory, so there was extra transportation involved and motion. And material was waiting there, waiting to be consumed by the main line, again, as I said, for weeks, if not months. And so this waste of overproduction introduced a lot of the other waste into the process, which just exacerbated the problem. So I want to challenge you to take advantage of our free tool. Take it out with you to the Gemba, where the work happens in your business and your environment. Stand there and see if you can find all the different types of waste that we just covered. Capture your observations, reflect on them, and see how you can utilize this information to drive continuous improvement in your business. One practice I learned from Japanese consultants many years ago that proved very effective in sharpening my own skills goes all the way back, supposedly, to Taiichi Ohno, who was considered the founder of the Toyota production system. And he would have anyone, managers, other leaders, executives, and team members stand in a circle that he would draw on the floor with chalk, would have them stand there for hours with nothing else than a pencil and paper to capture their observations in regards to the waste, to really look for those opportunities for improvement. Maybe that's a practice you want to replicate one way or another. Take advantage of our tool, capture opportunities, and use them to kickstart continuous improvement in your business. Thank you very much for your time. Look forward to hearing your feedback. Tell us how you like our tool. We're continuously looking for ways to improve, and I hope to see you further down the road as part of a member of our program. Let us know if you're interested, and we're happy to provide you additional information.